President Donald Trump's current administration announced in September of 2017 that they wanted to phase out DACA. The U.S. government is not accepting new DACA applications and stopped accepting renewal applications on October 5th. Those currently enrolled in the program retain their benefits, which will only last a total of 2 years. After 2 years, they will likely be deported unless we advocate to protect dreamers and keep DACA. Here's why they should be protected. First, it is important to understand what DACA is. DACA stands for Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, and it is an American immigration policy that allows some individuals who are brought to the U.S. illegally as children to receive renewable upon good behavior 2-year period of deferred action from deportation and become eligible for a work permit in the U.S. The policy was announced by former President Barack Obama in the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, or USCIS, and they began accepting applications for the program in August of 2012. So who are the Dreamers? To apply for the program, immigrants had to be younger than 16 years old, must have no lawful status, completed high school or GED or enrolled in school, have been honorably discharged from the armed forces, and have not been convicted of a felony or serious misdemeanor and do not pose a threat to national security, and also must have been in the United States since 2007. As of 2012, 1.7 million people were eligible, and as of September 2017, there are 689,800 active DACA recipients. 79.4% of Dreamers come from Mexico, 6.3% from Central America, with the remaining 14.3% coming from the Caribbean, Asia, and South America. The average age of Dreamers are 24 years old. No Dreamers are older than 36 because the program required applicants to have entered the U.S. before their 16th birthday. And most of the DACA recipients live in California, Texas, Illinois, New York, Florida, and Arizona. So now that you know who they are, here's why they should be protected. There are many accusations against Dreamers claiming that they commit many crimes and shouldn't be allowed to stay here for that reason, but that's just wrong. Actually, there's no evidence that Dreamers are more likely to commit crimes than the general population of the U.S. Let's listen to what Trump had to say during his State of the Union address on Tuesday, January 20th, 2018.
6 members of the savage MS-13 gang have been charged with Kayla and Nisa's murders. Many of these gang members took advantage of glaring loopholes in our laws to enter the country as illegal, unaccompanied alien minors and wound up in Kayla and Nisa's high school. Evelyn?
Many people came forward and called out Trump for what he said. For example, California Senator Kamala Harris responded to Trump's comparison on Twitter. MS-13 is an example of some of the worst criminal gang behavior. To equate that with Dreamers and DACA with scapegoating, this is fear-mongering and it is wrong. Stuff like this makes a worse name for Dreamers because people who blindly listen to accusations like that are convinced that they are really bad people. However, remember I told you how to qualify for the program? They could not have been convicted of a felony, a serious misdemeanor, multiple misdemeanors, and do not pose a threat to public safety or national security. This proves that they were not criminals prior to coming to the U.S., and actually, if they do commit crimes, they will lose their Dreamer status and they will likely be deported or detained, just like any other criminal here, except they actually get sent away if they commit crimes. The amount of non-criminal arrests in the U.S. has more than doubled from 4,200 to 10,800 from January through April 2016 compared to 2017. Interestingly, in 2015, Pew Research Center found that Dreamers have an incarceration rate of less than 1% at 0.98% compared to the native-born Americans at 1.12%. Furthermore, undocumented immigrants who were not eligible for DACA had an incarceration rate of 0.38%, and legal immigrants had an incarceration rate of 0.24%. It looks like their focus should be on the native-born American incarceration rate instead. So as you can see, claiming that DACA recipients and other immigrants are committing crimes as your reasoning for wanting to deport immigrants is just wrong and a way of scapegoating. These type of allegations are resulting in the deportation of thousands, even though these are all based on unfounded claims. Will we really allow our government to deport innocent people? Studies have shown that the threat of deportation has negative health effects, such as stress, on immigrants such as DACA recipients. Just think about the 200,000 native-born American children who worry constantly if their parent, who's a DACA recipient, will be sent to another country. It could happen at any time. You never know when, like the last time you say goodbye is actually the last goodbye. And then think about the stress of the parent who's in a different country from their children. They can't adequately take care of them as they want. They are not able to see them. And then think about the stress of the family that remains here in the United States, here without that family member that's sent away to a different country. These DACA recipients who are going to be sent away to a country that they barely even known, they're going to struggle so much because DACA recipients had to have been younger than 16 when they arrived in the US. So most of them have no memory of their country of origin, and many have said that they feel like the US is their home. On average, the recipients were 6.5 years old when they arrived in America, and 54% of them were under the age of 7. Imagine having to go back to a country that you have little to no memory of living in, and having to leave your family, career, and home behind. 91% of DACA recipients are employed, and they are employed in 72% of the top 25 Fortune 500 companies. 21% of recipients work in education and health services. The American Medical Association estimates that under DACA, 5,400 additional physicians will work in America in the coming decades, which alleviates a projected shortage of primary care physicians. The AAMC has already warned that the nation's doctor shortage will rise between 40,800 and 104,900 by 2030. In America, the average doctor is responsible for treating 3,000 or more patients. When it comes to education, there's an estimated 20,000 DACA recipients who are teachers, and many of them possess Spanish language skills, which is in high demand. However, if DACA is repealed, the current teacher deficiency of being short 327,000 educators will increase greatly and will affect an estimated 3.9 million students in K-12 who are either undocumented, have a parent or teacher who is undocumented, or undocumented themselves. Besides that, eliminating DACA will result in an economic loss of $215 billion, a fiscal loss of $60 billion from lower net tax revenue, and $7.5 billion in deportation costs. The loss of the recipients would reduce the U.S. GDP by $433 billion over the next decade. They are very important, especially during a time when the unemployment rate is near a 16-year low, and American companies are trying to fill 6.2 million jobs. Not only does repealing DACA pull the recipients away from their careers that they worked hard to achieve, other Americans who have relied on them for educating the youth and helping us when we're ill, they will all lose an important resource that we might have taken for granted. 15% of recipients own a home in the U.S., and if the program is repealed, they will likely lose their jobs, fail to pay their mortgages and their rent, and lose their ability to work, drive, buy a home, or even make a bank account. They lose, we all lose. Who wins? As I said earlier, the stress of being deported can lead to stress, and now you kind of get why. Studies have shown that it can lead to worsening mental health, but what's even worse is the process of being deported, not just a thought, but the actual process of it. The ICE detention system is notorious for inhumane and abusive conditions, as well as a lack of transparency and accountability. The Department of Homeland Security has demonstrated consistent failure to implement standards that adequately protect detainees from abuses, ranging from sexual assault to inadequate medical and mental health care. Detainees are exposed to overuse of administration segregation, absence of outdoor recreation, and denial of in-person family contact visits. In many cases, they separate young children from their parents and put them in detention centers in different states. Also, the U.S. has an immigration court backlog of more than 600,000 cases, or more than 2,000 pending cases for every immigration judge, which means that those who are detained for being in the country illegally, they could sit in ICE detention centers for years before they see a judge or are actually deported. If DACA is repealed, the recipients will be torn away from their lives that they've made here, including their jobs, families, belongings, and can be sent away to unethical detention centers for who knows how long. Disgustingly, the DHS relies on privately owned facilities to house more than 70% of detainees, so the individuals who own these facilities are profiting off the imprisonment of undocumented immigrants, which includes some DACA recipients as well. They are simply following their American dream, and they deserve to have that opportunity just like the rest of us. So, what can we do to save these hardworking, law-abiding people from being torn away from their life as they know it? To start off, 76% of Americans, including 69% of Republicans, support DACA recipients. That should be plenty of people who can advocate for them. We need to vote in people who use their platform to help protect DACA. We must also participate in demonstrations, rallies, and marches to show just how much we want to have them here. We need to show that to the government. You can write letters to your politicians. Maybe you can volunteer some of your time to learn more about specific stories, because being aware is always a good and beneficial thing. Finally, speak up for those who are not being heard, and make sure you inform people so they can join the fight as well.